What's up, guys? Welcome to I'm Outraged, episode 11. I'm pretty sure it's episode 11. I titled it episode 11 in my computer. We'll find out if I was right in the end. But we are back. Those of you that tuned in for the live broadcast with me and Matt Kelly for round 3 of the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast live mock. I made a post here this weekend where you guys can check out my personal rankings. I pinned those, my top 36 Superflex, as well as adding the list of the draft that me and Matt Kelly are currently going through. We're 3 rounds in. For those of you that have not been keeping track, there was a huge debate on day 1, which essentially forced us into only making it through round 1. And then we started round 2 the following Saturday. And of course, we ended up only getting through 1 round again. And these are like 2-hour episodes. So just this last Saturday, which was yesterday because I'm recording on Sunday, Matt and I did it again. And sure enough, we only made it 1 round. This is incredible. We said, look, we're going rapid fire. And I pointed out to Matt, I had the first pick in the 3rd round. I made my pick, and sure enough, Matt and I ended up having another 15-minute conversation. And at that point, I said, look, Matt, round 4 is out the window. It's not getting done today. So I'm coming back again next Saturday, and Matt and I will get after it, and we'll do another recording for everybody looking forward to round 4, as well as I will add some additional Superflex ranks to this Patreon site so you guys can see kind of the rankings outside the top 36. Because with Matt and I going back and forth, it's hard to tell who's got who ranked where. But I did call him out on the episode, and you guys will appreciate this, because he was giving me immense amounts of shit about taking Zach Moss as the first pick in the 3rd round. I took Zach Moss at 301. Okay, Zach Moss was a 3rd-round pick to the Buffalo Bills. Singletary couldn't leapfrog an old Frank Gore. This is one of the teams that rushes the most in the whole league. So there were a ton of reasons to get behind the idea that Zach Moss is a player that I might want to own. Well, Matt Kelly goes on for 10 minutes to take an absolute dump on Zach Moss and me for taking him at 301. But meanwhile, I have his personal player profiler rankings pulled up on my screen. And I know that the only other player that's available that he has ranked ahead of Zach Moss is Joshua Kelly. So he's going on this long rant, and I'm just sitting back like I'm sitting on a fastball. I'm just waiting for him to finish so I can ask him, Matt, just out of curiosity, you just took a huge dump all over Zach Moss. So you must have 8, 10, 12 players ranked ahead of him on your personal ranks, right? But I know it's just 1. And Matt breaks character and goes, I got to come clean. He goes, I've only got 1 guy ranked ahead of him. We've got him as our top 25 player. And it's like, that is how the sausage is made with Matt Kelly. He is going in, creating narrative, creating a war zone, and finally I had the opportunity to catch him in it. So I really hope that stays in the podcast, and I think it will, because that is a perfect example of the wars that I have to fight. But Zach Moss at 301, I don't hate it whatsoever. I think he was the best running back left, aside from Joshua Kelly, and there are obvious differences between the 2 players in terms of athleticism overall. But Zach Moss and some of these pro football focused metrics, yards after contact, the guy's just a tackle breaker. So you could chalk it up to the conference that he played in. You could chalk it up to the players that were on the team around him. Whatever you want to try to assimilate to this, to try to say that it discredited what he did. Regardless of that, he had pretty premier numbers despite the fact that the athleticism was not there. So I took him at 301, and I don't feel bad about it whatsoever. But today is Sunday. I record this on the weekend. Typically, I record it on Monday, but I'm recording it on Sunday today, and I decided I was going to smoke a brisket. I got a Traeger. I had a Traeger in the past that had tons of mechanical issues, and it was constantly crapping out on me. It would lose temp. It would cut out completely while I was smoking. 2 hours would go by. I'd walk over, and it'd be at 0 degrees, no fire in the fire pot. And I'm just like, what the hell? Why are these so much work? A grill is easy. A propane grill, I turn it on, I throw my meat on there, I flip it, I pay attention to it, I'm done. When you're smoking something, there's a little bit more labor of love involved. And I decided I'm going to do a brisket. And a brisket is one of the most challenging things you can do on a smoker. because it takes so long and there's a bunch of pre-prep and everybody has their own feelings about how you should prep it. Should you marinate it overnight? How do you trim the fat off it? There's just so many schools of thought to this. So I spend about a half hour the night before. So Saturday night, I'm prepping it. I'm trimming the fat off of it. I'm cutting pockets into it. It's about a 6-pound brisket. It was a 15 originally. I cut it down to do 2 different smokes with it. And I'm cleaning this whole thing. And I decide, okay, I'm going to marinate it. So I spray mustard on it. You do lines of mustard. You rub the mustard in so you make a nice little base layer. Then you add your seasoning to it and pat it in. And it helps keep the seasoning adhered to the meat. Flip it over, do the same thing, get it ready, put it on a cookie sheet, wrap it in cellophane wrap, put it in the fridge. Boom. 5:45 a.m., I'm up. Because these things take forever. We're talking 10, 12 hours. So if you start a brisket at 6 a.m., now if it goes on the grill at temp at 6 a.m. with no issues, there's a good chance that you're still not eating that thing till 6 p.m. or later. So I threw it on the grill. Got up at 5:45 a.m., got my smoker going, threw it on the grill by about 6:15, and it's going to take about 10 hours to smoke. So I'm looking at about 4 p.m. before I can pull it off the grill. About 10 hours total. And just before I start recording this, I walk by my smoker because I want to make sure it's going because I have PTSD from the last smoker that I used to own. The thing would turn off on me. Drove me nuts. So I'm looking out my window. I'm drinking a cup of water, and I'm looking at the smoker, and I'm squinting, and I'm looking at the numbers on the digital readout, and it should be at 225, 250. The temp should be set at. So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what the hell is going on now? It's dropping into the 140s, so it's way below where it's supposed to be. And I'm watching it go from 146 to 145 to 142 to 141 over the course of a couple minutes, and I'm like, God damn it. So I go out there. I check where the pellets go because maybe the auger isn't getting a good feed. Maybe they're jammed up. Maybe the fucking firebox is clogged. I don't know. But you're in the middle of a cook and everything in there is hot. You can't just open the grill up and figure this thing out and go MacGyver in it. Your meat is now losing temp. And it's a pain in the ass when this happens. You want it to maintain temp. It's the reason guys who smoke meat don't open the grill a bunch. It's not like when you're cooking burgers and you've got direct heat. You're not opening it up all the time and flipping shit. You're just leaving it. But now I've got the lid open. Temperature has dropped completely. And now I'm freaking out. Now I'm like, holy shit, what do I got to do? So I run inside the house and I start the oven. I get the oven set to temp because really a smoker is just an oven. So I go inside. I set my oven to 250 or whatever. Run back outside. I get the meat ready. I get all my foil. I get the meat unhooked from its probe, set it on the foil, double wrap the foil. I pour a cup of beef broth on it, get it inside, and I put it in the oven when it finally gets to temp and I close it. Now, for those of you that don't smoke, you only need they say about 4 to 5 hours is the most smoke that the meat will ever take. And at that point, it can't render more into the cook. So I'm at about 4 hours at this point. So I don't feel that bad. But the fact that I lost temp, moved it, put it on a tray, put it back in the oven, and it's going to be in the oven for another probably 5 hours. It just drives me completely bonkers. The idea that I have now got a brand new smoker gifted to me from my uncle. Very cool. He didn't want it anymore. He had only used it twice. Super nice smoker. And it's having an issue as well. And that's on me. It's probably a maintenance concern. But you don't want a flipping maintenance concern to happen in the middle of you smoking. Ideally, I would not have touched that meat for about 9 hours, and I would check the temp, and it would be where I needed to be. And then I would go through my process where I wrap it in foil. I wrap it in like beach towels or towels, and then I put it in a cooler, and I let it sit for another 40 minutes to an hour because it'll raise temp while it's in there. And then by the time it comes out of there, you just cut it with a knife and it falls apart. It's amazing. And smoked meat is so good. But good God, the pain that I have gone through to attempt to do this is overwhelming. And every single time I do it, something comes up. It's a temp issue, or it's a pellet issue, or I can't even explain at this point how many times I've dealt with this, but rule of thumb, and some of you guys probably do smoke, and I'm sure you're way better than me, and right now you're probably like, good God, what a rookie mistake. Clean this thing out, check the firebox when you're done, down on the bottom so it doesn't clog, check where it feeds, make sure you go through the process when you shut it down. A lot of people don't do anything to their Traeger and they never have problems, but I'm cursed. I am constantly cursed with problems with smoking meat, but my family loves it, I love it, and once again, I have set foot in the fire and I am ready to try it, and right now it's in the oven, and I'm just so over it. This goddamn Traeger. So when this is over, I will be outside, hood lifted on that thing, tear that thing apart, figuring out where this one pellet, there's probably one pellet that's wedged sideways, it's blocking the auger. I don't know what it is, but these are a pain in the ass. But if you do it right, the food is so goddamn good. So that is my non-lifestyle tip for you. If you have a Traeger and you have no problems with it, you are the luckiest person in the world. If you don't have a smoker, and you've ever thought about getting one, it really takes cooking meat to the next level, vegetables to the next level, chicken, fish, whatever you want. Everything goes to a heightened state when you do it in a smoker, but it takes about twice as long to do a burger. And the cleanup, it's comparable. These are the maintenance issues that I deal with, and they drive me nuts. I feel better, though. I feel better venting to you guys. Actually, I feel really good right now. And I'm going to make you guys feel good because we need to talk about a deep stash in Dynasty football that you can make some money off of in the end. It's not always about finding guys that are going to hit or finding guys that you can shoehorn into your starting lineup because you lack depth. Sometimes it's about mining a player to turn him into future value later on. And for me, Isaiah Coulter is that free money deep stash. This is the guy that I have been locked in on for the past couple of weeks as I've started going through some of my newest rookie drafts. And I've had the pleasure of acquiring Coulter in multiple leagues where the draft was maybe 4 rounds, barely 5 rounds. And while he sat in free agency post-draft, I just came up and clicked him as soon as free agency opened. He was available and sitting there. And he's a small school prospect, but he has ideal size and 4.4 speed to go with 5th round draft capital. So, I mean, these are all boxes that have been checked. He's not an undrafted free agent. And he landed in a fantastic organization in terms of the talent around him and the opportunity that could come. Now, we all hate Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien has completely screwed this organization for the past couple years, and this offseason was no exception. It was as bad as it's ever been, and we're going to get into that. But this is a great spot. Yet, admittedly, the breakout finder doesn't love Coulter's chances, as it's basically put a curse on his soul by giving him a 9.5 breakout rating. That's not good. That's well below the 20.0 threshold that I constantly talk about. But however, like we discussed this weekend, again on the Sonic Truth live stream, and that will be out yesterday because I dropped this on Tuesday, but I'm recording it on Sunday so you can see where my confusion comes in trying to think about all this. But when you've reached the late 3rd in a rookie class, especially one this deep, or certainly the 4th round, and absolutely by the 5th round or post-draft in that free agency period, the players that I'm looking to acquire are not nearly the guys that are going to pop right off the bat, but they're the players that I think have the best chance of showing me something so I can turn and flip them. Because I don't really intend to play these players that I grab in these spots. That's the problem. Lots of people do, and they hold on to them for too long because they mark them. And they go, yeah, that guy's going to hit, and I'm going to hold on to him forever until he hits. And that's the problem. Because my goal is to locate players with the best chance of making some sort of impact in their rookie season. And then I package them in a deal or I sell them 1-for-1 for future rookie picks. That's how you do it. You don't be the guy in your league that picks up one of these late round guys and goes, oh yeah, this guy's going to hit. That's my guy. I'm holding on to him. And then you're holding on to him into week 11, week 12, week 13. He hasn't done shit. He hasn't done anything. He's a flop. And that's where you waste value. When you're taking guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, or you pick them up as a free agent, the ultimate goal, now 3rd round may be independent from 4th, 5th, undrafted, rounds, but The ultimate goal is to flip these guys. And the guys that I'm looking for are the Marquez Valdez-Scantlings, the Kiki Coutis, the Josh Reynolds. Guys that might have a moment or a stretch. Those are the guys that I'm after. Those are the targets. You don't need a guy to be a hit. Sure, you'd love him to be a hit, but for him to be a hit, that means that you held on to him through all the difficult times, through all the starters playing in front of him, through all the coach speak that he was never going to get on the field, through all the other players that were acquisitions to the roster that looked like they were going to be in front of him. You held through all of that because you thought he was going to be a hit or because you couldn't sell him. And if that's the case, if you got so lucky that you couldn't get rid of him, that he became a hit, that's great. Then you got that rare case. But for the most part, these guys don't hit. They flash. And all you need is a flash to sell them. And I mean, when we go back and talk about MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I mean, do you guys remember the insane level of hype that MVS was getting prior to the 2019 season? You couldn't afford him. None of us could. Let's take a trip down memory lane with some tweets that have been frozen in time that illustrate this. There's a guy, Tony Mataska. I don't even know how to say his name. He says, just bought my first MVS share. How did I do? He traded a late 2020 second for MVS. Who would you rather have right now? Would you rather have that late 2020 second, which is literally all these wide receivers, Laviska Shenault hanging out in that spot, especially in Superflex? Keyshawn Vaughn is back there in Superflex. Or would you rather have Marquez Valdez-Scantling right now? Seems pretty obvious. And then we've got Jonathan Tidwell, and he says, out of these wide receivers, who would you want to trade for MVS? Okay, so he's basically saying that he's going to trade MVS, and he can't decide which one of these receivers he wants in return. These are literally options for him. His options are Devontae Parker, Courtland Sutton, Kenny Golladay, Robbie Anderson. Are you fucking kidding me? You're telling me at one point you could have gotten Devontae Parker? Now, admittedly, Parker hadn't really fired at that point, but still, Devontae Parker, Courtland Sutton, Kenny Golladay. Good Lord. And maybe at this point, Robbie Anderson was kind of in that same MVS level, but MVS, he was going to be tied to Aaron Rodgers. It was Aaron Rodgers' guy. He had the speed. What happened? Nothing happened. Nothing manifested. Because it was a later round guy. You picked him up. You could have literally done anything with him. His hype was so enormous. And I don't even think Isaiah Coulter is going to reach this level of hype because the Aaron Rodgers thing. But there are some parallels. But this is just ridiculous. Here's a grossest one from Samuel Wallace. He lists his favorite dynasty buys right now. He lists A.J. Brown, Gesicki, Irv Smith, Ian Thomas, any day two rookie wide receiver. Then a guy responds to him. Fantasy Sports Enthusiast is his name. He goes, would you trade MVS for any of the players above? A.J. Brown is in there. A.J. Brown went in the second round. That's how big this hype was. The hype was so big on MVS as the second wide receiver in an Aaron Rodgers offense that because A.J. Brown went to Tennessee with Marcus Mariota and Corey Davis and was a second-round pick, Marquez Valdez-Scantling was actually a potential trade candidate for A.J. Brown, and this guy wasn't sure if that was a good deal. That's how crazy the hype got. But that's what using a late-round pick got you. Some guys in some leagues with some people whose brains don't fully work were willing to trade A.J. Brown for MVS because maybe they thought that they were one player away from making it into the fantasy title game. They were going to get there. All I need is MVS. I'm going to make it. I'm going to be a winner. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that because what's the real best range of outcomes? Yeah, sure, MVS has a good season in 2019. It carries over to 2020 and then eventually gets replaced. I mean, it's a rarity that a guy of this level of draft capital with his profile would ever end up being a star in the league. But that's not what we're looking for. We're trying to sell these guys to the people that think that MVS is going to be a star in the league because they're drinking the Kool-Aid, because they're all over the Aaron Rodgers second wide receiver hype, because they're all over the speed, because they're all over the big media talk. I was never on board with MVS and Geronimo Allison. Are you kidding me? Why? Devontae Adams is the clear number one wide receiver. And I've brought this up so many times. It's a rarity for any one team to prop up 2 wide receivers in the top 15. Again, it happens about every year, but it doesn't happen that often. And it's usually one team. What were the odds it was going to be MVS? So maybe if you're lucky, MVS is a top 25 guy. He's wide receiver 20 through 25. Yeah, sure, great. That means you get boom bust weeks, but you don't get the consistency. We need production. Give me the second round pick. If somebody said to me, would you trade Marquez Valdez-Scantling for an early 2 next year, a mid 2? We knew 2020 was a good class. I'd be like, fucking send it. Send it to me. I'm doing it. Yes, send it to me. I don't want that guy. I don't care what his speed is. What in the world? What were the odds? I mean, alone, the probability was so ridiculous. But what's truly mind-boggling is when you consider the fact that by season's end, MVS played in every game. He played in all 16 games. And he saw just 56 targets. And over his final 11 games as a Green Bay Packer, he averaged 2.1 targets per game. Shoutouts to the guy that didn't take A.J. Brown for him. Shoutouts to the guy that didn't want a 2020 second for him. What in the world? Anytime you can pick up a guy in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of a rookie draft, especially one you don't believe in. Now, again, Terry McLaurin was one of those guys that fell late. That's a guy that we believed in. But anytime you find a guy that you do not believe in, but lands in a good situation, has a path to targets, you pick him up in the late 3rd, early 4th, 5th round after the draft, sell those guys, package those guys, pair them up, wait till they get a little bit of buzz, and you sell them. Because MVS averaged 2.1 targets per game over his final 11 games. He flopped on his goddamn face. It didn't work. He didn't fire. Everybody told us he was going to fire. He didn't fire. And by the end of the season, undrafted free agents Geronimo Allison and Alan Lazard were taking turns dunking over him week after week after week after week after week in terms of opportunity and production. And MVS just faded away. He's dust. Absolute dust. But you could have sold him for A.J. Brown or second round picks, and people were actually wavering on whether or not that was a lucrative move. Good God. And I believe Isaiah Coulter has the chance to be a guy similar to that, with enough buzz in a Deshaun Watson-led offense that he could net you a future second-round pick before he almost inevitably never becomes a fantasy football difference maker. That's just the reality of it. What are the odds that Isaiah Coulter from Rhode Island, drafted in the 5th round, ever becomes anything significant? It's low. It's possible, but it's low. And because of that, we have to treat it exactly the way that I'm laying out right now. You just need a little sizzle, just a little bit. Just put them in the skillet, little weight, sizzle, sell. That's all I need. I just need a little bit. And it's even better, like I said, if you can string together a stretch, a moment, let it build. Think about Jeff Janis, right? The roller coaster that was Jeff Janis. Janis was at a peak. Janis was MVS before he was MVS. Everybody held on to Janis, though. Why? The odds were unfavorable. It was not going to happen in the first place. So why fucking hold on to him? Sell that guy down the road. Take your value. Even if it's only a 3rd, if you bought him in the 5th, if you got him as an undrafted free agent, boom, you added value. Now you can use that 3rd later. If you get a 2nd for him, that's best case scenario. Obviously a 1st would be better, but let's be realistic for a second here. Most of us, if we were going to trade for a player like that, we'd say the same thing. We'd be like, look, man, I'm not giving you a 1st round pick for a guy that you pulled out of free agency. That's our mentality. If you played enough fantasy football, that, I swear to God, is your mentality. You've said that before. A guy pulled some guy out of the trash heap who starts flashing a little bit, Kiki Kuti or whatever, and they go, yeah, I need a late 1st for him. And you go, there's no way I'm sending you a late 1st for a guy that you just pulled out of the free agent pool. Even if he's worth it, that's what we're saying to him, right? So you're probably not getting more than a second, but if you're getting a second, that's fantastic. I'll take a second. And like many small school guys, Isaiah Coulter faced teams with names that most of us can't even pronounce, let alone have we even heard of. I mean, just listen to some of these. These are great. I did this to Chase Edmonds in the past, but Isaiah Coulter may honestly take the cake. So one team that he faced was the James Madison Dukes. I don't know what type of athlete is enrolling at James Madison to play for the Dukes, but the odds are not a good one. And then he goes 5 for 99 and a touchdown against the Stony Brook Seawolves. What is a seawolf? You took a land animal and the water and put them together? Like at least a seahawk is flying around picking up fish. A seahorse is not a horse. If you didn't know that, it's not an actual horse in the water. That's a different thing, but a seahorse makes sense. But a sea wolf? No idea. And it's an actual wolf. Makes no sense to me. It's not mythological. I don't know what it is. And then this one, it just gets better. Then he faced and dropped 5 catches for 77 against the Delaware Fightin' Blue Hens. Not fighting. Is that not the softest team mascot of all time? Literally strikes fear in no opposing teams. If you're a team going to play the Fightin' Blue Hens and you're on the bus pregame, you are so hyped to play this team. You know that they are not going to bring an ounce of competition. The Blue Hens, that's embarrassing. Super embarrassing. And somehow it gets worse because another team that he faced in 2019 were the Elon Phoenix. Yeah, no, let that sink in. The Elon Phoenix. And I'm still not convinced that that's not an internet school. I kind of think that maybe they showed up and there was no one there. Or there was like 11 laptops on the field on the other side of the ball. I don't know how this works. I don't know how this bit works. I didn't workshop it. So anyways, the Elon Phoenix. Does somebody inform me on what that is? Is it around where you live? I have no idea. This is a shocking thing to hear. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But then you look at the schedule for Rhode Island and boom, this ray of light, it hits you in the face. And it's right on the schedule. It's right there. One game, it's blinding. There's one team that was worth a shit. And to be fair, it was a pretty big shit. In week 6 of the 2019 college football season, Isaiah Coulter and the Rhode Island Rams, it's a good name, Rams, makes sense, solid, faced off against the Virginia Tech Hokies. A defense that by the end of the year ranked number 15 in opponent completion percentage and number 63 against the pass in all of college football in 2019. So not that bad. Not bad, especially for a big-time game for Rhode Island. And for 4 straight quarters, Isaiah Coulter proceeded to abuse this defense to the tune of 9 catches for 152 yards. So he beat the ever-living snot out of the Delaware Fightin' Blue Hens, trashed the Seawolves, obliterated Elon Musk's community college, and then goes to Virginia Tech and lights up this defense with D1 talent. Lights them up. A school where players are actively attempting to enroll, being recruited. He dropped 9 catches for 152 against those guys. And this wasn't some fourth quarter garbage time production either. It started in the first quarter and it went all game long. Right off the bat, he breaks off a huge catch for 40 yards, and he continues to be a weapon down the field, in the middle of the field, in the short area. They can't cover him. He's unguardable in this game. And it's these little instances that give us just a smidge of belief that they may have the minimum level of talent to step on the field. But they just need an opportunity. And guys, the Houston Texans are full of opportunities. Are they not? Because the minute that DeAndre Hopkins was traded to Arizona, everything changed in Houston. There is no alpha wide receiver here. And there is no consistent playmaker here. And it gets uglier with each layer that you peel back from this onion of despair. It gets worse. Look, Will Fuller is an unrestricted free agent at the end of 2020. So this coming season, Will Fuller, his contract, it's up. And Will Fuller has also missed a minimum of 2 games every year due to injuries. And most years, it's way more than that. In fact, when you look at Will Fuller's profile, in the first 4 years of his NFL career, he's missed 22 games out of 64 potential appearances. That's 34% of his games he's missed. You think he's a player that Houston can rely on? We know he's a boom-bust talent. We've seen him have massive games. Now there's no DeAndre Hopkins there. So what happens? Andy's an injury-riddled player. So Houston cannot count on Will Fuller for a full season of production. There's no way. And then they go on. They make a trade. They send a second-round pick for Brandon Cooks, who's had so many concussions that I've lost count. That's the guy that we're adding to this roster to pair with the injury-riddled Will Fuller, the guy who's had more concussions than any player actively playing in the league. But the good news for Isaiah Coulter and those of us that are stashing him is that Brandon Cooks has a contract out in 2021, so in just 2 years. And this would allow Houston to release him with $0 in dead cap money. So Brandon Cooks could be gone, and we don't know that he even makes it the duration of 2 years. He's literally 1 concussion away from likely never playing another snap in football ever again. So you can't really count on him. And then this is great. And then they go and sign nearly 30-year-old Randall Cobb, who has also missed a boatload of games due to injury throughout his career. So we've got Fuller, we've got Cooks, and we've got Cobb. And all these guys have been hurt a bunch of times, especially recently. And Cobb is no different from Cooks in this, right? Because he has a contract out after 2021 that carries just $2 million in dead cap money. So that's not that bad. So they can move on from him as well. But Bill O'Brien has done his absolute best to put as many injury-riddled playmakers on the field as he can for Deshaun Watson. Because that's what Deshaun Watson said this offseason. He said, look, Bill, I need you to trade away perennial superstar DeAndre Hopkins. I need you to go get me a running back that's washed. You think you can do that? Bill's like, yeah, I can do that. It's easy. It's easy. So they get him David Johnson. And then he goes, look, Will Fuller's constantly hurt. I need more injured players around me. I play better when I look to my left and I look to my right and I don't recognize who these guys are. So get me Brandon Cooks and overpay for him and go get me Randall Cobb because I'm sure he's got something left in the tank. Even though Randall Cobb is on E and the gas light is flashing and it's beeping and it's louder and louder and it's like, hey, dude, we're about to run out of gas. But they added him as well. Why not? Because it's also 100% possible, it's 1,000% possible that all 3 of these players could be missing games at the exact same time. Think about that. Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, all the guys not playing. Inactive. It's totally possible. Hell, even 28-year-old Kenny Stills has had strains and sprains over the past 3 years. And guess what? His contract runs out in 2020 as well. So what are we doing here? All 4 of these guys have injuries, and there's no depth behind them. So why not the fast, young, healthy 5th-round selected Isaiah Coulter? Why not? I mean, there's nobody on this roster who's younger than 26, signed beyond 2021, or injury-free. Not a single person on this roster. And you want to know the best part about Isaiah Coulter? He cost you next to nothing in trades, and he's almost always available in the 5th round of rookie drafts. And I can almost guarantee you with absolute certainty that in many leagues, when the draft is over, he's sitting there in free agency just waiting for you to grab him. Go get your value.